Welcome back to another episode of Rocky Unscripted, where we talk about faith when Sunday is over. And this is Enneagram 7 Day. We are talking about the subtypes of Enneagram 7. Mitch is really, really excited. Good to have you back. It's been a couple weeks.
I know. I'm good to be back in this chair.
Back in the saddle. I thought you were going to say saddle. You're pretty specific.
Yeah, this specific chair.
That's your spot. That's your spot. And we are joined by Kelley and Dane. So glad to have you guys on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Great to be here. Love it.
Thanks for being willing to be analyzed, your brain and your personality types. I know you guys, but we always like to take a minute just to be like, tell us about yourselves. Let's start with Kelley. What does life look like?
Life right now looks like I have 3 boys, 6, 4, and 1. They are wild and so loud. Our house is just loud, always. My husband and I...
Do they wrestle or break things?
This morning, as I was getting ready, they were both pillow fighting on my couch behind me, and they put the baby up there too. And I was like... I didn't even stop it. I was just like, well, let's see.
Did the baby have a pillow?
Like, they just like, I think he was the pillow.
I was going to say.
Wow.
That's perfect.
That is the difference when you have the third kid. You're like, you're just in this now.
Yeah.
Go be free.
100%. And I'm the third kid too. So I'm like, you'll be fine.
Are you the third of 3?
Third of 3.
Okay.
And so is my husband. Third of 3.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's destiny. Yeah. You're going to have 3 kids.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's all.
So life is loud.
Mm-hmm.
They're young too.
Yeah. They're little.
Uh-huh.
So time after bedtime is sacred time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When is bedtime?
7:30.
See, that used to be our bedtime, and I miss it.
Same. I also miss
So
it.
good.
I feel like now it's the Wild West. I'm asking them like, hey, would you guys mind going to bed? Please? No? Okay. Well, let us know.
Well, I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
So what else? What you mentioned? Did you mention Ben, your husband?
Ben is my husband.
Okay.
Yeah, we live in Erie. We live in this neighborhood with a bunch of our friends. It's this dreamy little oasis with this little commune that we've created.
Oh, that's fun.
We go to the mountains a lot. We love to play and hike and fish, and it's kind of our getaway. So,
do you guys still manage that with the 3 kids?
We do. We
Nice.
just pack them up, and we have puke bags that they just hold because a lot of them get car sick, and we just are like, put it in the bag. I don't know what to tell you. Here's some Dramamine. Cross our fingers, and we're going to the mountains because it's our play place. So we do that a lot, and life is good. So life in the summer is good. We're at the pool all the time right now.
That's good to hear you say that, because I'm ready for summer to be over.
You are?
Yes.
It's been here for like 3 weeks.
Oh.
And you were in Africa for 2 of them.
Dane, I don't know about that. Do you feel that? You ready for summer to be over?
Maybe for a different reason. I'm like, hey, kids, it's time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's move on.
The kids, and they're awesome to have around, but I think they're starting to reach that point where it's like they're kind of bored.
No, they're ready to go back too, I think.
Yeah. So what do you do for a career?
So I'm a therapist. So I have my own private practice. I love my job. I love my job so much. So I work with a lot of women. I work with a lot of trauma. I have this modality called EMDR that I utilize a lot specifically for trauma and PTSD. And I love my job.
That sounds like we're going to need to bring you back for another podcast episode specifically talking about. So what is EDMR? Is that what you said?
EMDR. So it's a modality that helps people reprocess trauma, a significant trauma.
Oh, wow.
And it helps our brain kind of get out of the stuckness that they're in. So it's been really powerful. And
isn't it like there is a component of like rewiring the brain?
Yeah, like on a neurobiological level, it's very much rewiring like the neural pathways.
Not hypnosis.
Nope, not hypnosis, which apparently is a new thing now.
It is very Wait,
prevalent. Hypnosis is a new thing?
Okay, not new, but like maybe
there's a lot of practices using it now.
Maybe resurfacing?
Yes.
Yeah. Like
are you gonna get licensed?
Maybe. To
hypnotize?
Oh, I kind of just want to get hypnotized for something. What could they? I don't know.
Try
it out.
It sounds like fun.
Every episode we do, there's a little bit of a story time with Nick where I just share personal stories. I'm going to do that now.
Great.
Dane, why are you laughing like that? Okay. I was studying to be a therapist. I was working on my master's.
Okay.
You can ask me more about it later. But anyway, I didn't finish my master's, but I did a clinical with psychiatrist that used hypnosis, and I was in a session when he hypnotized one of his clients, and it was incredible.
Did it work?
Yeah. It was amazing. You know, it wasn't the like swinging the watch.
Right.
And
Did they quit smoking, or what was the?
Exactly,
no, he was working with patients with chronic pain, and basically he was helping him be able to kind of put that aside, so it wasn't just this massive part of his life, that pain, right? Really, really powerful. I didn't know we were going to go here in the interview. We went this far. You just like, tell us about yourself, Kelley. Talking about hypnosis.
I don't know
and
much
trauma
about
therapy.
hypnotism.
Okay,
but.
Not yet.
Nick's been waiting to talk about it. He
been
was just jumping at the chance.
Actually, you jumped in on that really quickly, Mitch. That was really impressive.
I also was going to do family and marriage therapy and didn't work out. And so doing, ministry.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, let's jump to Dane. Dane, tell us about yourself. You've been on the podcast before, but for anyone joining us that's new, what does life look like?
Well, I have an 8-month-old daughter, so that's a party. Probably not the party you're having. She's really cute and just like learning to crawl. And I walked in to get her out of her crib this morning, and she was up on her knees with her hands on the rail, just like looking at me, waiting to get out, just ready for the just day. Chilling. So I'm sure that's, every day with your boys just walking in and they're just ready.
Just bundles of joy.
Yeah, exactly. Bundles of joy. So that's been an experience. She's our first, so we're just figuring it out as it comes, and it's a blast. Married to Shelby for 8 years almost, which is awesome. I've worked at the church. Been here for almost 10 years, which is crazy.
That is
Isn't that
crazy.
nuts?
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Never would have thought you would have made it this long.
I know, it's shocking to everyone.
How old were you when you started?
I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, that also blows my mind. Every once in a while I'll be like, Sean, thank you. I don't know why you did that, but thank you.
Oh man, you've done a great job since the beginning.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. So yeah, it's a blast. Been one of the worship pastors here, and I love it. It's awesome. So Go ahead. I was going to say, I get to do photo, video stuff here, which is a blast as well. So I've been on the other side of this podcast doing some of that stuff. So I love that.
And that was something that we kind of stumbled into. It's like you were the music guy, the worship guy. And it's like, oh, Dane's actually really, really good at video.
COVID kind of just like brought all that in there.
Forced to be video everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. It's fun. I got to develop that skill quite a bit during that time. So it's a blast.
So obviously today we're talking in-depth Enneagram and looking at subtypes of Enneagram 7 specifically. And you guys both identify the strongest as an Enneagram 7. So before Mitch, I would love for you to kind of give us an overview of what an Enneagram 7 looks like. But I just want to hear from you guys in your own words. Like, what is it like being in an Enneagram 7? What's your journey with the Enneagram been? Did you test as a 7? Did people just tell you, hey, you're totally a 7? What has that been like?
Yeah, I a few years ago when we took the test, I did test as a 7, and I didn't know much about it. I was just like, yeah, that checks out. I didn't really take a deep dive into it, and then I went to a couple of seminars, and it just started. I was like, yep, that's true. Yep, that checks out. So I know like a little bit about the Enneagram, and I just a little bit about each type because with my clients and stuff, we'll do a little bit of work around it, but. I think for me, I was talking, it's funny because I actually, it was a couple weekends ago. We had it was 4th of July weekend. We had like 6 barbecues in a row. And there was this one barbecue that I like took a nap. My baby took a nap, and I woke up and I was like, oh, I like just feel so introverted. I don't want to go or like be around other people for a minute. And just like, and I stayed, and I sent my husband and the kiddos. And I got like 3 texts from my friends. They're like, are you okay?
What's wrong?
We're in your corner. Like, what? Yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, I was like 100% fine. Just like at home.
I love that you take a nap and people are like, we're in your corner. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Something must be terribly wrong.
Yeah. I had to convince them that I was okay. I was like, you guys, like, and they were like, you're just a raging 7. So it's really obvious when you're not around.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so, I think like other people have also spoken that, over me, but, as far as like the in-depthness of what the 7 means, I like understand why I am who I am and how I show up in the world as a 7. But,
so I'm curious, as a therapist, what do you think about the Enneagram? Is there a little bit of you that rolls your eyes? if people start talking about Enneagram?
So this is how I've always explained it. I think that it's like a low resolution photo of how we show up in the world. I don't think that it's gospel. I don't think that it's the ultimate truth. I just think that it's a tool that we can use and go, okay, if this is how I typically show up in the world, what are the vows that I'm making because of this, or what am I aligning with? That often like aren't true. Right. And so, if I have this narrative about myself that, I have to be perfect or I have to succeed in order to be loved, like that's not the story of grace. And so I think that is a great tool.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes up over and over and over in these episodes that we still talk about Jesus a ton. It's like, it can give you that, maybe that low resolution photo. It's like, okay, maybe this can help us identify on areas that we could grow. But then there's still an incredible amount of dependency on God. I need you. I need your help. I'm glad you weren't like, the Enneagram is completely useless. And then we're like, all right, have a great week.
We're wrapping it up.
And thanks for joining us.
Yes. Dane, what is it like being a 7? I know we've done like different assessments as a staff, and I know people have told you like, you're such a 7, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's it been like?
I mean, I think the most general thing about being a 7 that I was told, and I'm finding to be true, is that I just like to have fun and do stuff. I cannot sit still. So like, I don't know if anybody's texted me when I take a nap, because I don't take many naps, but I'm like ready to
have your 3rd kid and you'll take a nap.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I did take naps when Tyler was tiny.
There you go.
Oh man, I took a lot of naps then, but that's because we were up all through the night, and that's the worst. But yeah, it's like, I just have a lot of energy. It's funny because now we have this baby, and my parents were just here, and she has a lot of energy. She's just kind of going. My mom was like, this is what you were like as a kid, like constantly just trying to do stuff nonstop. And I can see that in myself. Actually, we were writing songs yesterday, and we were writing a song about rest in Matthew 11. And I wrote this chorus, and it was just like a banger. And Nick was like, this doesn't really feel like rest to me. And I was like, this is what rest is. Like
doing things.
For me, it's like, you're like going skiing or paddle boarding or like, I don't know, just like, that's restful. And Nick was like, I don't know.
And I think we're like, we should talk about this in the podcast tomorrow.
I think so. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that kind of sums up what it's like for me to be a 7. Yeah.
All right. So Mitch, why don't you give us that overview, and then I might throw it back to you guys, be like, does that ring true? But just to kind of start us before we get into the subtypes, give us that overview of what an Enneagram 7 is like.
So oftentimes, like, the label that 7s are given is like this enthusiastic visionary. It's this super excited. They see all these possibilities of what could be, and fun and adventure and those kinds of things. And so the primary motivation of 7s is to experience life to the fullest and to avoid pain at all costs. The way they focus, the things they focus on in the world is looking forward, looking for new possibilities, new ideas, looking for freedom, pursuing what they want and what they need, as well as whatever interests them. They're in pursuit of trying to make sure they get the fun that they need, so that they can, in this focus on that, so that they can avoid any pain that may come their way. And then the worldview, the way they show up in the world, is they really do see the world as full of exciting possibilities and ideas and experiences, and they need to explore as much of that as possible. Want to explore all these ideas and all these possibilities. And so oftentimes 7s can be accused of like having FOMO, this fear of missing out. And it's like, oh, well, that sounds fun. Well, that sounds fun. Well, that sounds fun. Well, I need to do that, because they're constantly looking for new possibilities and stuff to get. So that's like the really quick overview of Enneagram 7. What does that resonate with you guys? How have you seen that in your own life? What
Dane's
would you
smiling
add?
really, really big.
The FOMO thing is real for me. I don't know about you, but it's like, truly, as I've gotten older, I've had to be like, it's okay. It's fine that you're not doing that thing. It's all good. Life will go on. But like when I was younger, if I couldn't do something, it really bothered me, like a lot. So it's just funny to hear that again.
Why did it bother you?
Because I wanted to be a part of everything that I thought was like, that was cool. I want to be, that looks fun. I've never done that thing before. I like hanging out with those people, but I'm out of town. Like whatever.
And what does that do to you, like internally? What goes on?
Ooh, wow. Okay, welcome back to counseling. Thank you, Mitch. I think probably when I was younger, it was probably almost like an anger that I couldn't be there. Like, and then I think there's another part of like fear of like if I wasn't invited to a thing, it's like, well, do they not like me, or like, am I not good enough to be a part of this thing? So that's, I don't know. I should think about that more.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be a good thing to explore.
Yeah.
Kelley, how do you respond to either the overview that Mitch gave or Dane's explanation of that FOMO?
Yeah, I think FOMO, I like feel like I'm proactive with FOMO. So I'm like, I'm just going to create all of the fun. And
people are like, oh, Kelley's here. We didn't invite her.
Yeah, here I am. And I got snacks. Yeah. So, and I think that's, with our, honestly, like that's part of the reason we go to the mountains so much, is because it's fun. It's play. We just get to go and fish and like play on toys and
is that restful?
It's for so you? Restful. Those are our favorite weekends. And if we're doing that, then because we'll miss like birthday parties and stuff down here, but if we're doing that and having fun, it doesn't like it hurt as much. I'm like, no, we're like, because what we're doing is amazing. So, as far as I think I'm just always going to be up here. I'm going to live up here, because if I dip down into pain or harm or anything, like what if I get stuck? I think that's really real. Like if I might get stuck if I dip down and I don't know how to get out of that.
So just keep it here.
Keep it up here.
Yeah. I know Dane, I've known you for longer than you, Kelley. Both of you guys just seem to have those kind of like the stereotypical, like funny personalities. Like you're bright, you know what I mean? So I see some of, that the descriptions you guys are talking about. Do you feel like you guys like hide behind that, or is it just who you are? I'm curious.
So it's funny. I think it's just who I am.
Yeah.
I remember when I met my wife and we went on a few dates, she was like, she didn't tell me this till later, thank goodness, but she was like, I thought you were fake. Like, I thought that you were like just putting on this thing. She's like, obviously I learned that wasn't true. Like, that's just, you're just positive and
you're just
happy.
That good of a guy.
Yeah, I'm really good. So it was just, yeah, I think that's who I am. And I've run into that a few times with people, that when I first meet them, they're like, I think he's just putting something on, which is interesting actually. But no, I would say, I don't know. What would you say?
I think both. I think that when I was younger, being the like funny, outgoing one that was crazy and did all the things was absolutely a facade that I could hide behind. I think that it was this way that I could show up if I'm funny, and if I can make people laugh, then nobody's going to leave, and I'm going to be accepted, and I'm going to be a part of something. I do think that the Lord created me to be pretty like naturally witty and joyful, and I love making people laugh. That's one of my favorite things. But I also know that I kind of hate saying this still, but I also know that I'm tender. Like there's this part of me that's tender, and it's hard to go there. Like it feels vulnerable to go there. And what if I get stuck? If I'm like, so I think it's both.
For sevens in general, it's this like the stuckness it's a lack of freedom, the lack of like, oh, all my opportunities are going to go away, and I'm just going to be in this. And I think we've talked before about unhealthy views of our emotions, and every number struggles with a different version of unhealth with emotion. And for the 7, it's like, as long as I can stay positive and fun and joy, it's like this, but there's just this one color, and there's all these other colors of feelings that needing to explore to truly be the most like whole self, and, But so for the sevens, it's much more of that on that joy spectrum, because that helps them move forward and not feel stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's start going through the subtypes if we could. And maybe you could just do one of them, and then we'll kind of time out and just get your responses to that. And, earlier you mentioned when it comes to the Enneagram, you haven't gone like super deep with it. And I love that. Great. Because I feel like the conversations we've been having about the subtypes in these episodes alone, we realize that the gifts we have, it's like, oh, this is where you guys are really different. And the subtypes kind of help color that in. We haven't yet. Well, there's only been one episode so far. We've actually had 3 of the same number. That was the last episode. We haven't had all 3 types in the same room, but I think there's been some differences in every episode. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Sure. So I like to give just a really brief picture of all 3 subtypes, and then I'll dive into the self-preservation. So again, there's 3 different instincts, and it's the self-preservation, social, and one-to-one. And when those 3 different instincts, with one of those instincts is married to a particular number, it creates the subtype. And so what we're talking about is this instinct with the Enneagram 7 coming together. And so for the self-preservation 7, 2 things. They avoid discomfort by seeking out new opportunities and new possibilities and creating alliances with people. They don't want to have, as long as they can have this new fun opportunity and have these people around them that can help provide that fun in a moment's notice, that helps them feel more secure and more safe and more free. Another thing about the self-pres though too is they also seek freedom in very pragmatic, practical ways. If this thing works, that's what I'm going to do. Where you get into the social 7, this is also the counter type. Every number has, one of them has a counter type, and this is they're trying to actually push against the 7's natural inclination of trying to get experiences and this living life to the full. For the social 7, they're actually trying to make sure everybody else can live life to the full. And so they're projecting all the things they feel internally outwardly onto other people, and they want to make sure other people are having the best time that they can have, and they're willing to sacrifice and bend over backwards for other people. And the social 7 can be confused with an Enneagram 2 because they're constantly trying to serve other people. It's still a different motivation though when you get down to it. But they're also they seek freedom by trying to be easy, undemanding, and sacrificing themselves for other people. You get to the one-to-one 7, and they are trying to avoid discomfort and pain by reframing everything. It's this rose-colored glasses. Oh, that's not so bad. It's you know. Oh, that didn't really hurt me. It's whatever, you know. And they go through life. They're the most idealistic 7. Self-preservations are the least idealistic, and the one-to-ones are the most idealistic. And it kind of goes up on that scale of idealism of what life could be. So anyway, that's a like really quick overview of some of the differences. Diving into the self-preservation, a couple of things you need to know in addition to that is they are relentlessly positive. They find security through pursuing their interests and pursuing like positive and stimulating experiences in order to really escape the more difficult parts of their life. And so they want to stay as positive and as bright and as joyful as possible. They're not as much idealistic as they are cynically distrustful.
Whoa, cynically distrustful. I like that. Those are powerful words. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, but it's very different than what I think, you typically think of some of the sevens. They're not cynical. They don't distrust things. But there is this underlying distrust of others. So they want to pursue their own interests and align with people who can help support them in their interests. So another thing to know about the self-preservation is that they recognize opportunities. Out of all of the different subtypes, they recognize opportunities and possibilities more than any of the other ones, and they jump on them as fast as possible and pursue them. And they find ways of getting whatever. They're really doing this to find ways of getting what they need and what they think that they want in their life. And so they're pursuing that. And then the last thing you need to know, there's actually a lot of other things, but the last thing we're going to cover today with self-preservation sevens is that they're natural networkers. They are incredibly good at making connections with other people. And again, this is to ultimately try to find out who can help benefit me in pursuit of the direction that I'm going. So that's the quick overview of the self-pres 7.
Okay, so just some of your initial thoughts. You don't have to be like, that's me, or there's no way that's me. But I'm curious, is there anything there that resonated with you uniquely?
I think the thing that jumped out to me about that was the seeing opportunity and jumping on it. There's a lot of areas in my life that I can see that playing out. Specifically, this is a really stupid example, but like back when I was doing a ton of stuff with guitar pedals and different things, if I saw a pedal was getting hot, I'd sell that thing so I could like bring in the most money to buy the next thing that I wanted. And I still do that to an extent with different things. But just like, I don't know, seeing different opportunities with people, I think that sometimes is where the FOMO comes into, because it's like, oh, here's an opportunity and I can't do it. Yeah, exactly.
Can't let it go.
Exactly. The thing I didn't resonate with was the networking thing, which I thought was interesting. Obviously I love hanging out with people, but I don't think I'm actually a great networker of like staying in touch and like reaching out and being like, I don't know, hey man, how's it going? Just trying to like keep that relationship so I can get what I want. So that was interesting. I need to think about that more.
What do you think, Kelley?
I think that was the one thing that did stand out to me was the networking thing. Cause I'm like right now when we do our boys' birthday parties and stuff, I'm like, how do we do this with, especially the 1-year-old? I literally invited so many people to our 1-year-old birthday party, like my grad school friends and all of our neighbors and my high school friends who have kids that don't even live in town. Like I just was like, yes, everybody come. So I think the networking thing that makes sense to me. Like I keep in touch with so many people. I don't know.
In this, but for the self-pres 7, the networking thing, it is more of like the ones that are closest to you are almost like trusted family though.
Oh, 100%.
It's not necessarily a breadth as it for the self-preservation 7 as it is like is more of a depth. Like we're mafia together nothing can come between us. We're in this.
Does that feel different?
That does feel different.
Okay.
Yeah, that feels different. In my mind, that's a different thing from like what I think of networking.
Oh yeah.
Because usually when I think of networking, it's like I have a list of all these people in my phone that I can reach out, and this person will like can contract for me for this, or I can whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we keep moving?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the social 7 again. This is the counter type. They're really focused on other people and sacrificing. And so a couple things you need to know is that they are very idealistic, but their idealism is a mix of illusion and good intention and ingenuity that actually helps propel them forward. They're very active and moved by their ideals. So they're like, I see this thing as it could be, and that is actually what propels them into action. And so another thing you need to know is that they're very sacrificial. They sacrifice their own desires for the needs of other people to really try to create a better family, a better world. They are again very idealistic in that, And they really try to give more of themselves than taking for themselves, which is counter to the other two sevens. It's more focused on themselves and how do I have the best experience and the most fun. And this is what I think is going to be the best. This is how are you going to experience this in the best possible way. And then the last thing is that they're very service oriented. They're great at not only serving other people, but mobilizing other people to serve people. And they oftentimes are serving other people though. And this is a way they're projecting their pain outwardly. So they don't have to deal with their pain. So they serve other people. And that's what creates that fun for them, is seeing this experience that I did. It's like if, somebody says, hey, I'm going to be at your birthday. It's going to be great. And this is like a family member and you're like excited about this person coming to your birthday. And then they don't show up, but then they're like, hey, it's okay, because I bought you this and I bought you this. They're trying to avoid the pain of not being there by overspending or doing something for somebody to show like, no, I'm there for you. So anyway.
Yeah, so let's pause there. We'll start with you, Kelley. How does that description resonate?
Well, I think part of me is like, yeah, I'm like so sacrificial and so selfless, and like that sounds like good things. But I think my mind just went back to like attachment theory and like insecure attachment when I hear that. And I'm like, I think because I can often show up like that of like, okay, I'm going to, yes, buy you gifts, give you this. I'm going to write thank you cards. If I don't write a thank you card, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate me. Yeah, I have to. Maybe that's a generational thing coming down from grandparents. But I'm like, I have to do this. And so I think the like overcompensation sometimes can, and I think the wanting fun for other people, I see that a lot in like my parenting. Like I'm like, I want to set my kiddos up for all of these fun experiences, whether that's sports or let's go skiing, let's go swimming, let's go try this new water park or, but I don't know so that's like what my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Hearing these two, the self-preservation and the social, does one ring truer than the other?
I think the social rings a little more true, mostly for kind of that last thing, Mitch, that you said of like, I just hear of like overcompensating for the people around me. But it's really, it can again be a facade that I can hide behind.
Gotcha. Dane, what would you say?
I think I heard all that and I was like, I kind of wish I was like that.
So selfless.
It's like, wow, so giving and
they
so
serve.
Yeah,
they sacrifice.
serve.
Like, yes, should be doing that.
Yep,
should be doing that.
Yep, that would be good. I should maybe think about that.
So, what does that mean? Does it mean it doesn't resonate?
I think there are parts of it that resonate. I think I do want people to have a good time, especially if it's something that I'm putting on. It's like, I want you to have a good time at this. I want you to enjoy yourself. But I think that's probably like a smaller part. I think I more resonate with the self-preservation than I do the social. Because you're reading all this and it's like this outward thing, and like I'm like, oh, I really just kind of think about myself a lot, which is terrible.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, we talked about Enneagram 6 as the last episode, and I identify the closest to a self-preservation.
Yeah,
and it feels the least like Jesus.
Yeah,
so it does trouble me. It's like I wish I wasn't so consumed with myself. However, if I know that can be helpful.
Totally.
As opposed to just like being in denial of it. So you're saying you so far at least you identify more with the self.
I think what I identify with the social is probably more how I was raised. It's like I grew up in the church, we served, we did things, we, were a part of, I don't know, serving different people. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of how I grew up. But I think actually how I am is not that. It's just like how my parents trained me to be. Which I think is different. So
I would say this, like it sounds so good, but I also just don't know if the underlying motivation is actually is any closer to being like Jesus than if I'm like, no, I'm doing this and I'm overcompensating, so that I just keep going back to this like.
So I feel good. I feel good about myself,
right?
And that's really, they want to feel to feel like they are a good person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as long as I feel like I'm a good person because I did that for them,
mm-hmm.
that is, they can also look like a little bit like a 1 in this because they have this goodness meter.
Yes.
More so than the other 7s.
Right. Oh, and I don't know how much of like when you're in stress and when you're in health or whatever, but from what I knew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but I think like when I'm in stress mode, I go to 1 and that feels, I like also identify I can like 1s. I'm like, oh yeah, that feels. Yeah.
You can see all that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Let me ask you this. Social 7s, it makes me think that let me just ask directly. Do they create experiences for people? Like, are they throwing parties? Are they putting together trips? I'm just curious. It sounds like it goes that direction.
I think sometimes they want to, but they don't always follow through with it.
Okay.
We're getting into the next subtype does this to a more extreme extent.
Ooh, okay.
But they want to serve. I mean, their whole motivation is really service and sacrificial giving towards other people. And it's really, again, to try to cover up what they view as their own shortcomings or defects or stuff going on, so that they can prove that they are a good person to other people and they're doing the right thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk 1-on-1s.
All right. The 1-on-1, again, they're masters at reframing. All 7s have a tendency to reframe things towards a positive light. But the 1-to-1s do this to an extreme extent. A couple of things you need to know. Number 1, they have huge imaginations. They're not as concerned, like self-pres 7s, they're more ground level, whereas the 1-to-1 7s, they live more in the clouds. This what could be incredibly idealistic, this fantasy land, and they have all of these plans and they want to just talk through all of these different plans. And sometimes other people who don't know them might be like, there is 0 chance we can do any of those things. But they're just like, we could go here and we could go this. Wouldn't that be awesome? And in that imagination and that talking, they're really trying to, they use a lot of humor to test the waters of, do people like that idea? And if they do, maybe I'll go for that. Or they do whatever their technique is of drawing people in to test to see which of all of these possibilities in my imagination could actually come to fruition, and who wants to do this with me, because that's going to be a blast. Like that's kind of the one of the things. So another thing is they want extraordinary experiences and a bunch of them. They don't want to do one thing. They want to sample everything. Baskin Robbins 31 flavors, we're going to try them all. And just a little bit, but they need to experience all that the world has to offer. And that's just their natural, what they're drawn to. And then finally, they're incredibly enthusiastic. They enjoy talking, very enthusiastically about all their ideas, all their plans, all the things that could be done, whether they ever actually happen or not. But they actually love talking because it gets them excited to hear their own discourse, their own dialogue about them talking about these things that could be. And so typically lots of words are accompanied with them. So again, when you hear these 3 different subtypes, there's actually we can't just say, oh, all 7s are blah, 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 blah. These are 3 very different expressions of a 7. So anyway, I don't know how you guys resonate with any of that.
I have a question first.
Sure.
So is this one that's more of like that party planner?
Yeah,
they're going to create those experiences for people. You mentioned they use humor to kind of test out, like, would people want to do this?
They're not necessarily going to create it. They're going to dream about it. Okay. And part of the just throwing out all these possibilities and all these ideas, they can get caught up in the clouds and never make it practical. Whereas the self-preservation, they're the pragmatic. Here's an idea. Here's a thing that could actually work. I'm going to go do that thing. Whereas the 1-to-1 is like, we could do this and we could do this and we can do that. And wouldn't that be fun? And we're going to have so much fun. And I think sometimes this is more of the meme version of the 7 that people think about. They reframe things. They're fun. They talk a lot. They're the life of the party. There's all these ideas. We're going to not just do a slip and slide. We're going to put, baby oil on there. And you're going to slide down and you're going to go into a sea of whipped cream.
Do people do that? I thought it was so. Like dish soap. Did you put baby oil down on the slip and slide?
Yeah, dude.
Whatever works.
That's impressive. At that point, you don't even need the hose. Yeah. You don't need water. You just,
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's impressive. Yeah. I think I might have a 1-to-1 7 in my house. Some of the things you're saying, one of my kids is multiple times a day, she will say, I'm so excited about ... Yesterday was like, I'm so excited about basketball tomorrow. She's in a camp this week. It's like, what's different about, like, it's Thursday. You've had 4 days of, and she's like, I just cannot wait. I'm so excited. But
it's something also common with 7s is like the grass is always greener on the other side.
Cannot wait.
And it can't wait. Yeah. And this is going to be, it's very future focused. And there's a struggle with being in the here and the now. Yeah. And just like, getting to the moment that they've been dreaming about. And then just being in that present moment is sometimes difficult for a 7. And just like, I just really enjoy being here in this moment and enjoy. It's like, well, we're here. What else are we going to do? We're going to go do this now. We're going to go do this now. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot for me. So, but anyway, so going back to the 1-to-1 7, was there anything in that you guys resonate with?
There was a lot that I didn't resonate with, but the 2 things that I really did was the reframing. I find myself doing that quite a bit. Actually, it's funny. So I was in therapy last year for the first time, and in the first session, I remember I was talking about something really hard that went on in my life. And I got done telling the story, and my counselor looked at me and he was like, did you know you were smiling that whole time? And it's like a heavy story. And I was like, nope. And he was like, basically, you're trying to reframe for me right now as you're talking.
Trying to convince him that even though this sounds awful, it's okay.
It's okay. It's fine. Yeah. So I definitely do that. And I'm becoming more aware of it now, which is hard. And then the other thing was the sampling thing. I resonate with that a lot. It's like, I want to try all the things. If I go somewhere and there's a bunch of options, I want to try every single option before I choose the thing, whatever it is. So I resonated with both those quite a bit.
But then there were a bunch of things you did not.
Yeah, I think I've struggled with the meme version of the 7, like you were saying. Like, I think this type of 7 a lot of times will is flighty, maybe, has a reputation for that. And I've never identified with that. I feel like when I've said I'm going to do something.
It's more flaky.
Flaky, flighty. And I think I just didn't resonate with that. It's like, no, if I'm going to do this, I will finish it on time. You will get this. And so there's just different parts of that, and the kind of living in the clouds. I think I'm way more practical. So I didn't resonate with that, which probably makes me lean towards the self-preservation more.
Is now a bad time for me to tell Dane, actually, you are incredibly flaky? Is that would that be a bad time?
Is appropriate.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, Nick's my boss, so maybe he'd be like, no.
I make that joke, but you what you say you're gonna do, you do every time.
Yeah,
yeah. To your point.
Maybe don't ask Shelby that. Maybe she disagreed.
It's different when you're at home, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Kelley?
I think that this will never be enough, or I have this quote all around my house that says, "Be where your feet are," and wow. I pray for contentedness all the time, because it is this okay, that will be it. That will be it when our family's complete. That will be it when we both have these jobs. That will be it when
we have 7 kids.
Nope. No.
You're content with 3.
I'm content with 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. I actually did say that. I used to say I would have so many kids, and then I had 3 boys, and I'm like, they're so loud. Loud. So I think there's part of that I resonate with, where I'm like, yeah, I can. So it's so funny because I had a dream like a couple years ago. It's prophecy. No,
Let's hear it.
It's just a dream.
Yeah. And then we'll use hypnosis.
Yeah, that's good. And it was like our like core friend group. We all lived in the same neighborhood, and I like texted them the next morning, and I was like, "You guys, I had a dream that we all lived in the same neighborhood, and the saddest part was like one of you guys lived like on another street." And it was like so dreamy. Like we all live in the same neighborhood now. Like it's amazing. It's so cool. Like through all this, like over the last couple of years, we were like, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're like super committed. And so when you were saying this like mafia type mentality of like, we're all, that's like our commune, like, but it's so funny. 'Cause I'm like, that will be it. Like that would be the dream. And now we're living it, and it is dreamy, but it's so funny how I can still be like, oh, well, when the boys get a little older, that will be it, because then we, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So, I pray for contentedness a lot. But I don't think that I'm like, like over, I don't know what you're saying, like over enthusiastic, or just this like.
It's the pie in the sky, rose colored glasses.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah. And I don't resonate totally with that, but
yeah,
maybe my husband could speak into that.
So one of the,
let's get him on the phone. We have that capability.
That was pretty good. Good sounds.
I wonder what our spouses would say.
I don't know if it was enough.
That wasn't enough digits. Okay. That's good though, because people could have dialed that number and gotten a hold of Ben.
One of the things we've been talking about on the podcast as well is also, there's also a thing called stacking. And so depending on, we typically have one of these three that is our dominant one that we lead out of and utilize for survival in our life. But then there's a second one that we swing to that we also utilize to help us navigate the world. And then there's one that's probably more underutilized that we don't tap into at all. And so I don't know if any of that helps with like, oh, I see this and I see this, you know, I see some in self-pres and some in social or some in one-to-one. But none in this one, or very little in this one. There's a lot of like, what is the stacking of these different subtypes?
I am all of them because I struggle with gluttony.
Nice.
That's good.
That's really good.
I will eat them all.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the social might resonate more than maybe because I feel like I could relate to a little bit of all of them.
Yeah.
So maybe the social, I think the self-pres, when I think about that, it's more of this, like, I am going to hide behind this mask of like, the mask is going to serve me because then people won't actually know what's happening underneath. And so, and this is where I'm like, I think I've done a lot of work on that. And so I don't know if I would like to say that I don't go there as often anymore of like the unhealthy part, but
I think it's one of those things too, is like, once we recognize it, again, it's always like the rumble strip on the side of the road. It's always there, and we're probably going to hit it again sometime in our life. And it's being able to have that name to it of like, oh, I'm doing this. I need to get back on the road, rather than in previous time. If you're not aware of that thing, you're just driving off the road all the time and getting into the ditch. And this, at least, you know, I like to say like our blind spots are always going to be there, even though we're less blind to them, you know, and they're always going to circle back. And this is constant working on those things. And so, and I think there are seasons for me, I'm like, oh man, I've really worked on the different things that nines wrestle with. And then every once in a while I'll get lax in it, and I'll see like, oh my gosh, that's creeping back up. And it makes me so mad because I'm like, I thought I did that. I thought I worked through that.
Right.
So anyway, I think that, as a part of our journey.
Dane, what kind of
Yeah.
When it comes to stacking, what do you see?
Well, it's funny that you said that, Kelley, because I was like, I kind of resonate with a lot of the things. I think the primary one for me is the self-preservation. I think that's the one that stands out the most. And we've had conversations about that, Mitch, a little bit.
You cheated.
We cheated. Yeah. Well, I didn't know about the podcast yet, so.
I didn't either.
Yeah, our bad. But then the other two, there's different parts of it that I can resonate with quite a bit.
There's not a clear second place.
Yeah, there isn't a clear second place for me. I actually thought it was going to be the 1-to-1. I thought that was going to be the one that was off. And there were definitely things about it I was like, no, not even close. But then a few of those things I'm like, yeah, that's pretty common for me to think about or to be doing. So I don't know. I need to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like a really brief overview of each of those things as well. But
yeah.
So let me ask you guys this, and you've already hinted, but I'd love for you to kind of crystallize it for people. What do you feel like, through the lens of the Enneagram, what do you feel like the biggest challenge has been for you as far as how you approach the world? Like, what's the one thing that you're like, I wish this wasn't true about me? That's a deep question.
That is a deep question.
Yeah.
So
I took some notes so I could tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
Great.
It's just kidding.
So this story comes to mind when I worked at this group practice. When I first started, when I was a therapist, I worked at this group practice up in Fort Collins, and there's a bunch of us therapists. And this mom of a kid I went to high school with came in because she was seeing one of my colleagues, and I saw her in the hallway, and she goes, "Kelley, I'm so surprised you're a therapist." And it was like this really funny moment for me where I was like, yes, same. Me too. I don't think there's a lot of Enneagram 7 therapists because they feel like they don't necessarily go hand in hand. But I think that has been one of the ways that I've just shown up in the world, and this mask that I've hidden behind is just this happy-go-lucky, kind of everything is fine. I'm going to be funny. I'm going to make friends with everybody as a way of survival. But I think with that, and this is what I would say, at the risk of over spiritualizing this, I'm I know that the Lord has always told me that I'm tender, and I've always told him that he's wrong. I'm that's not true. Mm-hmm. But I think that because of the way that I've shown up, I've made people around me believe that there's not a lot of depth to me. And so I think that has been hard. So when I actually was ready to dive into my story or start to name parts of my story that were harmful, I think that was really risky for me, because I'm who can I trust with this information, and who can I? So, who can help heal these parts of me when I've tried to run away from them for so long? That who's going to believe me or something? So, as far as what has made it hard for me to show up, I would say that when I finally went to my own therapy, I went to her for a year, every other week, before I actually went to therapy.
Oh, wow.
I would go and interview her and be how can I be more disciplined? Or what if I want to be a morning person? What should I do? I just was BSing my entire,
it was just kind of a self-improvement journey.
I was just checking off the spot. She was literally my lunch break in between my clients. I was eating my mac and cheese while I was this is fine. And then I got to this place where I was maybe I can actually trust this lady.
So let me ask you, when did it all of a sudden become true therapy?
I got brave. I think there was just this moment of courage, this moment of bravery where I was I think one, rapport was super important to me, where I needed to know that she wasn't going to leave if I shared.
Yeah.
Because kind of going back to that attachment thing, the Mitch that you were talking about, or the that feels scary. So I think that, when I think of this idea of an Enneagram 7 showing up in the world, that was hard. And people aren't used to seeing, my friends and people around me weren't used to seeing me not okay. So I'm thinking of a specific season. And that kind of sucked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good answer. Dane, what would you say? You have to follow that. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be tough.
You're like, being a 7's hard.
It's so hard. I just can't. No. I think the thing for me is just like identifying pain and being okay with it. It's very similar to what you're saying. You said it very well. And I think for a long time, I actually didn't think that I had a lot of pain, and I had deceived myself so much that I was like, it's good. We're good. And I even remember my wife a few times was like, you should probably go to therapy. And I was like, nope, that sounds awful. And then I ended up, in therapy, and it was immediately talking about pain. And it was something I had to face it. I couldn't get around it. It was just there anyways. And so that was it was very difficult for me to actually like dive in. And I resonated with what you said about you showed people that you were actually deep. You had a hard time, doing that. I think for myself, I didn't think I was deep. I think that I was like, I'm pretty just like flatlined. And I thought that was a positive thing, actually. And actually going through therapy stuff really showed me it's like, there's a lot there. Like you have a lot of depth, you have a lot of emotion. And part of that is painful. Part of that is hard. Life is hard. It's not all rose colored and, good. And I think for a long time I got away with that, because life generally was pretty good. And then, something you weren't expecting, something massive hits you. And for me, it was like, well, literally, I remember calling the therapist and I was like, I cannot process this right now. I have no tools. I need you to help me process this and figure out the pain I'm feeling, because I don't know what it is. And it's too deep for me to figure it out on my own now. So going through that was massive for me. It really sucked, to be honest. I hated it so much.
The therapy process?
The therapy process. Yeah.
It's terrible.
We actually talked about this. We ran into each other last week, and I was like, I would leave therapy and just be toast. Like I could not, I was done for the day. And usually it was like in the afternoon, and I'd get back to the church and I'd just be like, I'm going to try to work, but my brain is done. And then doing, Enneagram stuff has helped / I think kind of like confirmed a lot of the things I talked about in therapy. Just kind of like, oh, I see some of those things now when I read about Enneagram 7s. That makes sense why I think like that, or I do this thing. But I think getting back to that, being able to see and identify pain and be okay with it is big. I remember too, when I was in the thick of the therapy time, I was not very enjoyable. And I think it was really hard for a lot of people here. It was hard for Shelby because they're like, who are you? What is happening? And it was just like, well, this is where I'm at right now. And
you brought all that stuff
exactly
to the surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that was hard too. Cause it's like, I want to be who you all know, and that's still there, but I can't right now.
Yeah. Is it okay if I'm in a bad mood for a while?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think the fear of the stuckness actually comes true sometimes, because you have to like sit in it, and you have to feel it. Mine came out in my like body because I wanted to run away from it. So I'm like, no, run away. So when I was in I say that all the time, like therapy is terrible. It's terrible. And after my process, I would sit in my seat as a therapist and I would look at my clients and go, you are the bravest person in the world. Like I have so much respect for you, because that seat is hard. Like I have so much respect for my clients, because I sat there and I'm like, there was this, during COVID, I drove to my therapist's house, and she has this like, it was like a clubhouse type thing. And I literally, this is maybe too much information. I had to like pull into this clubhouse, and it was during COVID. So I like walked in there, and they're like, will you sign here in case there's a COVID exposure, and like give us your phone number? And I'm like, no, I just need to like throw up in your bathroom real quick, because I'm going to therapy. Like it just was it was such a physical response, because I wanted to run away from it so bad. It's this like, nope, I can't experience pain because I'm going to get stuck. But yeah,
I think therapy is a seven's worst nightmare because you're going in there to literally uncover all of this pain. And so, yeah, it was not enjoyable. It was the best thing. It has freed me up so much, but it was the worst.
It's like, it is exactly what our bodies need. And the last thing that we want to say yes to. Like I need it. And cause I think about the moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I needed another regulated nervous system to like tell me that it's okay and to be there and stay and say, yeah, like you're going to be okay. You're safe. So,
I want to keep talking about growth. And I think one thing that's very, very clear from this episode is that the Enneagram does not replace, you mentioned it before, it doesn't replace the gospel. It doesn't replace therapy, but it can give us some tools to maybe identify some things. And then we do the hard work. But Mitch, I would love to know if there are any suggestions you would have to give some sevens out there that are listening, some tools that they can move towards growth. What could be helpful? And then, I mean, you guys have already shared quite a bit as far as like, this is a little bit of my journey towards being healthier, towards growth, towards working through some of those things that have been such a challenge about being a seven. But you can also add in when Mitch is talking. But what would you say to a seven listening?
Yeah, I mean, it is finding that being able to be present in the moment and the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes you need to water your lawn and be in the moment. And to not just enjoy that anticipatory joy, but to actually see the people that are right in front of you. There's also the taking time to examine the motivations of, when you're going into hyperactivity mode, is there a pain you're running away from? And to actually sit in that of like, am I just being busy and going to this thing, to this thing, to this thing to try to avoid something? And stopping, slowing down long enough to actually be able to do some of that. And then, especially for the one-to-one sevens out there, this is recognizing your desire to idealize things, people, situations, events, and bring it back down to earth a little bit. And what is actually practical, because people oftentimes aren't living that far in the future and what could be or should be. That's the visionary part of the seven, but how do we make this more practical for other people? So, and then the final thing, especially connecting it with the gospel, is you talked, Kelley, you talked about contentedness. And I think that is the biggest thing that sevens wrestle with, and also pain, but like the being content and recognizing that Jesus is the only one who can bring that contentness in your life. And he's done all the work. He knows what's going to happen. He knows your pain. He knows all the possibilities of things out there, and you aren't going to find contentment in all these things and people and situations and fun. It really has to come to Jesus. And then from that place in Jesus, bring the joy and the fun to the people around you, and then embrace that from a place of being content in who Christ is for you. So that's what I would share.
I'm curious what you guys would add to that. Like, what is it about the gospel or Jesus or the church or going back to Jesus, his personality or who he is, that's been helpful with you guys working through some of the things that you struggle with?
I think the thing that jumps out to me immediately is just Jesus' pace. When you read through the Gospels, he is slow and intentional and is constantly taking time with people and by himself. And that is literally the last thing that I'm good at. Like, I'm so bad.
You're like, I want to be in the boat during the storm with Jesus.
Exactly.
I don't want like the slow walk to the next place.
I would have been in the boat like, Jesus, check this out. Look, like, I don't know. I'd be like, this is awesome. And so for me to like actually slow down is super hard. So if any sevens out there listening, I'm trying to encourage myself, but it's like, slow down, you know. Mitch brought this up to me a little while ago, and I never even thought about it, but I wrote this song a little while ago. It was actually at the beginning of this whole process of me being in therapy, and the verses, it literally says be still over and over and over again. And Mitch was like, that's a funny lyric to write as an Enneagram 7. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even think about it. And it was out of a psalm that I really like that says, be still and know that I'm God. And I literally, when you said that to me, it was like a mind blown moment. And I was like, wow, I think that was just a prayer I was writing for myself. That was like, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to be still. So I think for me, it's like when I look at Jesus in the Gospels and compare that to myself, that's what I see almost immediately. And I'm still so bad at it. Fortunately, my wife is pretty good at it. So she's kind of helped me out just kind of to slow my pace down, and having a tiny baby also helps with that because you can't do a lot.
You're not always going to have a tiny baby.
Well, listen, she's already getting bigger, and I'm like, let's go. We're getting her out on the paddle boards. We're doing all sorts of stuff.
Which you literally did, right?
Literally, we've taken her paddleboarding many times, and it's awesome. She looks like the Michelin Man in her like big old life jacket. It's hilarious. But yeah, I need to slow down.
What would you say, Kelley?
I think that the verse that comes to mind is you read the scriptures diligently, yet you refuse to come to me to have life. And I think about the like, okay, what do I do instead of coming to Jesus to have life? And this like discontent. So like I think of our budget meetings with my husband, and every time I'm like, and my tail's between my legs because I bought too many water balloons this month, or whatever it is.
That's like amazing. Specifically water balloons
for my kids. Right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's like you used all those water balloons without the kids.
Just by myself in the backyard. Yeah. Just neighbors walking by. But I think I'm like, what do I go to have life that isn't Jesus? And one of my favorite books is Beautiful Outlaw by John Eldridge. And he talks about the playfulness of Jesus and like all of like his playful character and all of the ways that he shows up. When he like with Peter after he, when he's like on the edge of the beach making fish for breakfast. Like there's just these funny things that he's kind of a prankster and kind of this like funny, and I love that because it's relatable, where I'm like, actually, I think there's this perception. I didn't grow up in the church, but I think there was this perception of like, he's like serious and, like you have to be like really, I don't know, like
buttoned up.
Yeah. And so thankfully, like as I got to know Jesus when I was older in like college and stuff, I was like, oh, he's actually very relatable, and he can be playful and fun and joyful, and we can laugh, and I can find my contentedness in him and go to him to have life. But that is something that I have to remind myself of all the time, because I'm like, no, life is going to be in this pool ball that I got, or these like I got like 14 floaties for 4th of July for our pool, and I'm like, this is where life is. This is where life is. And I got in trouble for that one. Next budget meeting.
That's so funny. I love the budget meeting. I thought you were going to talk about with your business. I did too.
Maybe as soon as you said that, though, I was like, oh, I've been there. Yep. Usually for me, though, it's like, I bought a camera. And Shelby's like, are you freaking kidding
But are you
me?
like, no, this is for the business, the photography business.
Exactly. I can spin it really fast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I justify it so quickly.
Exactly.
It's for the children.
Or I'll get him something. He's like, I could care less. I just needed T-shirts for Christmas. And I'm like, but I got you a Traeger.
Wow. That's
like,
amazing.
That is good.
That's amazing. Mitch, anything else that you wanted to add or that we may have missed?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
And man, I've really appreciated like hearing your guys' stories and, you know, the vulnerability of sharing. And it's just cool. It's every episode, I'm like, man, this is so cool to be able to hear just the difference of how God has wired everybody uniquely and bringing us together. It is that like body of Christ kind of moments each time. So it's cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, seriously.
We'll have to have you guys back again. We'll need to pick your brain about therapy and we've had several ideas of episodes, so we might invite you back if you're willing to.
I am willing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you want to pick my brain about therapy? I feel left. FOMO.
Okay, we'll bring you back on the show, and there'll be a live therapy session.
Oh, perfect. That sounds
and then
fantastic.
she can look at you and say, Dane, you are so brave.
You are so brave.
Yes.
You are brave, Dane.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate that.
I just want to get to a point to where he's
Thank you.
just weeping.
Yeah.
That's when we know we've arrived.
Right.
In a healthy, good
Yeah.
podcast interview. I don't know about the therapy session. That's how I always know. Dane, is it okay? Can I close
You can close it out now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and share this with people that you know, even people you don't know. You can post on social media, but we feel like people need to hear these conversations, and it can be really helpful. Next week, we're getting towards the end now.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll be sitting down with a couple of Enneagram 8s. You know them well if you've listened or watched the podcast before, but can't wait to join you guys next week, and join us again, Rocky Unscripted. Thanks for listening.